Writing a screenplay is very exciting. You've got this idea you really want to see on screen, you plan out your script, you write it, you revise it, and the story is clicking on all cylinders. And then you want to finesse the storytelling, which is something you should do at the end of the process, not at the beginning, so you're doing it right. But this is where the train sometimes comes off the tracks. And it's because you think you might be writing a script to try to win a Pulitzer or an Academy Award, and you forget who you're writing the script for. And that's going to be a problem for you. To make sure we're on the same page, when you write a screenplay, unless you are being hired to write it, and I'm guessing you aren't being hired to write it, so that means you are writing a script on spec, you are not writing a script that's meant to be shot or be submitted for consideration by the Academy or for anyone other than a reader. You are writing a script that's meant to be read and hopefully adored by whomever reads it. So you submit a query, your script gets requested, and a reader is going to read it and write what is called coverage on it. And all production companies and agencies do coverage a little differently, but the gist is it's essentially a report on your script. What's working, what isn't, what it's about, characters and arcs, a ballpark budget, and several other things, including your ability as a screenwriter to tell a compelling story. Now, most readers are in their 20s, some are in their 30s, a few are older than that, and being a reader is really an entry-level job at best, and often it's an unpaid intern. Now, before you get your underwear all in a twist and throw your hands up and think, well, wait, my ability to get my script to someone is dependent upon some 20-year-old's opinion of it, well, that's kind of partially true. Most readers, though, are people who love story and TV and film. They want to work in the industry, either as writers or agents or producers. The readers today are really the ones who will be greenlighting your film in 10 to 20 years. They aren't a bunch of random people who are forced to read a script. So right away, you need to understand something. If you've only written one or two scripts, most readers who will read those scripts probably know more about story and storytelling than you do. Plus, they are reading scripts through specific lenses and directives that they have been given. So even if your script is great, it might still get a pass because that company is looking for a vehicle with a female lead and your story has a male lead, or vice versa. So it's not personal, and that's something you have to understand going in. And you can find a lot of blog posts or random tweets from industry readers bemoaning the fact that they are so tired of reading certain types of stories or how badly formatted and written most screenplays are. Now, when it comes to formatting, there's a lot of stuff out there. I've got some on my channel and in my online courses that there's really no excuse to have a poorly formatted screenplay. But what most aspiring screenwriters don't realize is their vocabulary within the script is actually causing them the biggest problem. And here's why. Maybe one of these groups is you. So about 90% of aspiring screenwriters that I know fall into one of these three categories. One, they've written novels or short stories before and now they're trying screenwriting. Two, they know absolutely nothing about writing other than what they remember from reading literature in school and from writing classes that they've had, but they want to write a screenplay really badly, and so that's group number two. Or group number three, they think they just know everything, and it's just a matter of time before someone recognizes their genius, so they write to sound smart. And all three groups are honestly in trouble right off the bat. Writing novels and short stories is a completely different medium. The audience is different than a screenplay, but the biggest difference is in the storytelling, which is impacted by format and vocabulary, among other things. The writers who don't really know how to write just try to replicate what they remember reading in school, much of which is the hoity-toity literature with a lot of flourish and $10 vocabulary words, so they throw that in their script thinking that's what people expect. But that's not what readers care about, or frankly, what they want. And the know-it-alls, they just try to write to sound smart, so they like using all the $10 words, but their writing comes off as sounding entitled. And while there is a lot of people who act entitled in Hollywood, no doubt, no one likes it when other people are doing it. So these scripts are being read by a reader who is now looking for everything wrong with the script, and they blow it up every time. But what you have to understand is screenplays are not high art. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Movies can be high art, but screenplays are not. They are meant to be read. Yes, sometimes by 20-year-olds who are fairly well read and know a lot of $10 words, but the best writers are obscured by the great stories they write. If you're writing to draw attention to your writing, you're going about writing a screenplay all wrong. It's not about you. No one cares. It's about the story, and your writing has to serve the whole story while at the same time making the read as quick and as easy as possible. And most of the time, those big words, that big vocabulary you're just trying to write in and figure out and wedge in there, it just gets in the way of everything. Now, don't hear me saying you can't use big words or industry-specific words or terms or even obscure phrases. Of course you can, as long as it's serving the story and the way you're trying to tell it. So yeah, maybe a character or two use a well-rounded vocabulary in their dialogue. That's awesome, include it. But what's in the description? Is it written like you're trying to sound smart? Or is it written smartly? And there's a big difference between those two. And frankly, big $10 words and exquisite vocabulary, it just slows down the read. Now, maybe you want to use them because you intentionally want to slow down the read in a specific moment, but word choice matters. And often simple is better, because you want the reader to be flying through your script. And there are lots of ways to keep your story engaging besides using high art vocabulary. That is not the be all and end all. You don't have to have a massive vocabulary to be a great screenwriter. Again, sorry to burst your bubble, but you don't. You do have to effectively use the vocabulary you know in compelling ways to tell the story you're trying to tell. Part of what I'm getting at is you using and finding your authentic writing voice. Not the writing voice you think everyone expects based on high art literature that you've read. And for some writers, it takes a while to find, discover, and cultivate their voice. Other writers can just jump right in, but it depends where you're coming from. So remember those three groups? The ones who find their voice the fastest are the writers who don't know anything. They're figuring it out. They're having fun. So they don't have baggage. They don't have much ego. It's easier for them to turn the self-critic off and just write. The short story and novelists eventually sort it out, but it takes some practice and focused effort because they are remembering all the novels they've read and that everyone said all those were good writing, but they were hard to read, and they remember that, and it took work to read them, so they're wrestling through, they're trying to figure it out, and eventually they realize that reading screenplays isn't about work. You don't want the reader to work. You just want to immerse them in a story. But the know-it-alls, well, they think they know it all, and they rarely figure it out or even ask for help, sadly. And they spend their time slamming everyone else for not knowing any better and not doing what they are doing, even though it's not working for them. Now, most of you are watching because you want to learn, so let me encourage you to write simpler. Practice a lot and tell your inner critic to leave the room while you're writing so your authentic voice can come out. I do talk about your writing voice in my Fast Track course. It's linked below if you want more information, and there's practice exercises that can help you focus on learning the craft of screenwriting to help you progress quicker. So if you're interested, be sure to check out the Fast Track. It is linked below. And there are some other links below that might be helpful to you. If you just want to support me and my efforts on this channel, I do have a Patreon page, and I have a lot of my older videos housed there, and you get some swag depending on your level of support. So there's a link below for that too. If you want to learn a little more about your writing voice, you can watch this. There are fun buttons and links below. Please don't forget about that. And when you tell a story, pay attention to your vocabulary as you tell a story that matters. See you later.